Okay, so Jarno, can you tell me a bit more about the context in which you apply mock programming?
Good question, for sure. Actually, I'm more of a product guy, so currently like CPO. Uh, I'd say that I've been in different kind of software companies using mock programming, and mostly it's during the development phase. But usually, I I almost never join kind of directly to the mobbing, but I'm more of a kind of a expert inside on the substances. I'm just kind of gathering around and looking how guys are doing and just giving input when they need it.
Okay, so usually you're the one who sits aside during the mob session,
Yes.
while others do the programming and chime in if you need to unblock anyone or decide on anything product related.
Exactly.
Okay. And in terms of complexity and domain, can you tell me a bit more about the projects you've done?
Well, for sure. I'd say that some of these have included IoT devices, for example, so that there's firmware and software included, so that the cloud and firmware and mobile apps. So that kind of a lot of teams needed to be involved.
Okay.
Usually. So that's kind of the most complex. I think the segregation on what to mob and who to include is the kind of the hardest thing at times, since everyone's input is needed in different things.
Okay, good. And are the mobs usually doing coding, or you also do mob programming for defining requirements, refactoring, other business initiatives?
I'd say that it starts with specifications. Quite a lot of BDD use mostly. So we try to create along with the POs and PMs the specification files. And that's kind of the first thing. And of course, the actual implementation phase is also in there. So I don't restrict to only to coding, but it's a way to work together when we write something like living documentation or ubiquitous language files or anything like that.
Okay. And can you tell me about the time when you actually was in the organization while mob programming was introduced, and how did that happen?
I think I have usually came right after the mobbing has been introduced, but since there are always some sort of silos around, so I've been also like introducing it to the higher management. Let's say at one point the development team had already started mobbing and they did it like really all the time, but the rest of the organization wasn't like yet introduced to it. So it was more of a brainwashing on general agile, because well, there's 2 or 3 people and it's really expensive to develop, but then you try to kind of introduce the benefits about it. So yeah, kind of later on. Yeah,
kind of
later on.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how did you approach the rest of the organization about that?
I think it's mostly through explaining the benefits. Just going through that, okay, here are like, if we have a bottleneck thingy and someone gets sick or breaks his leg or something, then we have people who know, everyone knows what we are doing. And it kind of gives some sort of security to the continuity of the business and the continuity of the software in a sense. And I think that's a good selling point in many cases.
So it's mainly the single bus factor argument that's
Yeah.
mentioned towards the decision. Okay. And so actually, since the first time you came to an organization that did mob programming, you haven't wanted to go anywhere else. So, or
that's true. I think that you fall in love with the practice. It's something that just is good for the developers, and when you learn about it as a PM and what kind of it's more cooperative world in that phase when people are moving all the time. There's a lot of discussion. They ask questions. You are directly in the loop when there are problems, and you can solve them. You don't have to wait until things are shipped and surprises come. But you actually are like constantly on the edge there.
Okay, and what other improvements did you see with mob programming?
I think one of them is for sure the ease of recruitment. For example, since I live in Finland, so there's not that much of like companies, and especially here in Eastern Finland, that just you can't get developers that easily. And since you do something like these kind of practices, they are seen like really progressive or like new things and fun way to work. It tells people that it's psychologically safe environment where you can do this. So the management also approves that, hey, you can do work in pairs. You can have your like colleagues that can help you out all the time. And I think it just gives more room for learning and stuff like that. These are some of the benefits of like why I really love mob programming in many ways.
Yeah. So basically, to see if I understand, people are first more interested to come in an organization that mobs, at least in Finland. Because it's like a cutting edge practice, and good engineers want to practice it and be.
I'd say there are of course people are different, and not everyone likes mob programming, but it means just that also the recruitment has to be like in a way that it tries to find the guys who are interested in this kind of working style.
Yeah.
But I think that in none of the companies I've worked with, no developer has ever said no, that should we try more programming. It's never been no. We always try. And the practices differ, of course, when it works and when it doesn't work. But I'd say that it's mostly like one of the most like things in new places.
Okay. And I suppose also the onboarding of new people is faster with mob programming.
For sure. Actually, in the previous place I was working with, at some point most of the senior guys left pursuing for new opportunities, and you know when it goes, that one goes, a couple of others follow, and we have to introduce quite a lot of new people in the group. But we already have like established mob programming culture there, and I asked the guys like 2 months after they came that how do you like this? They were like, this is fast. And we got directly to the stuff in, and they really liked it. It was fast, and they were really effective as a team. That kind of the effectiveness of the whole team didn't suffer that much, even though we had a drop because some of the original team members left. But it was quite a fast recovery in a sense. It didn't take half a year or 1 year.
Oh wow! Okay. And
just it's really good for the onboarding. I'd say.
Mm-hmm. And what about productivity of the team?
Hard to say. I've always kept those guys like highly productive anyway in that sense. So I'm not sure. Probably in the beginning when we were learning the mobbing and getting people to kind of get to know the stuff, it took a little bit more time and like it was a little less productive at first, but it's quite soon ramped back up to where it was. So
So
and
most
then
yeah,
and then when we first started, those mobs were like pretty big, just so that we can onboard as many guys as possible. But soon we could like do more mobs at the same time. So it eased up a bit.
Okay, but the main benefits are in the onboarding and in the introducing the single bus factor and the hiring of new people and experience.
Yeah, but also that like there wouldn't be one guy who has the knowledge. I think the knowledge kind of spreads all over the team.
Yeah.
So that it reduces kind of bottlenecks also. I think that one good way is that when you have some sort of incident coming up or ongoing, then introduce it to the mob. First time it might be the one guy who can solve it, but it takes like 2 or 3 times, and then you have a couple of guys who can do it, and it doesn't affect the current like work that much. There's more like ways to select who's going to do it next, for example.
Okay, and did you see any drawbacks of mobbing?
Oh, that's a good question. I think that one of the drawbacks is that if there are like guys who really love like doing things alone and require their own time, it's not suitable for all. And you really have to find the balance on how much you mob. It's not effective if you do it like all day long. I like prefer that you select a couple of point of day, couple of like times, couple hour long times that you do mobbing in the morning and the evening, and have also like brain rests at times. So, but in overall, I'd say that if people say it's expensive or something like that, I'd say that no, it's more expensive to get the guys doing feature, and it drives you more easier to the feature factory mode if you don't mob in a way.
Okay, so it disables the feature factory.
I'd say does a bit, yeah, because then the management doesn't necessarily have as much control, seeming control to the tasks.
Okay.
I think if you go mobbing, you specify together with the team that things change at that point also, and then you start mobbing and doing things change. You have more like flexibility and immediate like control over the end results or outcomes.
Okay. Good. And what's the size of the mob usually?
Oh, that's a good one. I'd say that it's been like 4 to 5 persons.
Okay.
Me including. Sometimes depends if you have like really complex team and you really need the firmware guys and stuff like that, it could be a bit larger. But I'd prefer that it's like something like 4 or 5.
Okay.
For some reason, it has worked better than bigger ones.
Okay, a smaller works better. Or
yeah, I'd say that it has been better in my experience.
Okay. And what's the frequency of the mobbing sessions? When are they? How long are they?
If I remember correctly, what it was previously, but I just switched jobs, so
Yeah, I know.
can't talk about the new ones yet. But it was more like it was in the morning first session, like 8 o'clock. People started at 7 or something like that. So at 8 we started mobbing. Oh, I know the developers were crazy because they started early. But it was like from 8 to 11 probably. The first one, and then we had a couple of hours like lunch and stuff like that, and then from 1 to 3 probably. So that people had in the midday where there's lunch break, they had the time to check their mails and do some long stuff. And if it required some sort of research to do alone or individually, then we just skip the afternoon mob.
Okay, so it was usually the whole day was occupied with mobbing for most people.
Yeah, for most people it was like the beginning of the day and the end of the day.
Okay. And what roles do you have in a given mob? Is it the usual driver navigators setup or?
Yeah, usually it was like that.
Okay.
And of course me, who I don't count as a navigator, I was more of a guy who shouts at the side.
Yeah. And did you act as a facilitator, a part of your product management role?
No, I think that we just chose someone, usually someone who navigates, to just watch on the clock that we would be on time.
Okay, I see. Good. And did you do mob retrospectives? And how did you do them?
I'd say that kind of we did, but we didn't ever call them mob retrospective. After every session, we kind of held what felt good and what didn't, and what should we adjust around the mob itself. So in the beginning, I think those discussions took like 10-15 minutes. They were just formal discussions that, okay, hey, this work that we worked at the first 10 minutes and then rotate.
Yeah.
Usually it was like 10 minutes. We started with, I think, half an hour and then rotation, but ended up in smaller chunks and like 2-3 times through that 10-minute rotation. And it worked for us. And after 1 hour, we decided that we're not productive anymore, usually, and had a like small 5-minute break, go walk outside or something like that.
Okay. So you started with a big retrospective after every session, and then started doing it more frequently during the
yeah.
And if you've done pair programming, can you compare it to that? I know you're in the product side of things, but
yeah. I have a dark history being a developer once. about like I'd say it's been 15 years since I did pair programming, and I really liked pair programming at that time when we tried out, but it was really kind of hard in a way.
Okay.
Compared to mobbing, it was really like stressful on my mind. I remember that because we used to do like 2-hour sets, and you were exhausted after the day.
Okay, it's way more exhausting.
Yeah, I'd say it was for me at least. And you can do it probably different, but hey, I was a junior developer then and tried out new things. Yeah.
I've heard other people say the same, so I suppose it might be a common pattern. Yeah. And how experienced are the individuals in a given mob?
I think it has varied a lot. Usually, I love that there is like one at least a bit more senior participating. There are situations also when there's only been one senior and the rest of them are juniors. And for onboarding's sake, we've even done that. The senior doesn't write code at all, or the senior does all the writing. So try both ways.
Okay.
But it varies. I'm not sure. Have we ever even thought about like the seniority of the programmers? We like to keep kind of everyone on the same line.
Okay. But it's like there are usually more juniors than seniors in a given mobbing session.
Yes, mostly has been like that. Yeah.
And does this help the juniors to advance faster in their career and in their knowledge experience?
Probably should ask juniors.
Okay.
The feedback what I've got from them is that they've been able to do things or like get onto new things more faster. But in the end, I'm not sure how much there is like rework needed or something like that. But in the end, if you mob like in 10-minute sessions, the rotation takes care that we fix all the problems if we encounter them. So if there is only even one senior in the group, so probably yeah. Probably it has helped the juniors a bit to advance in their careers.
Okay, and what's the mob programming setup you use?
Remotely or on site?
Both.
I'd say that on site we started again. We had a huge TV screen and everyone was just sitting around it. But ever since we had even one developer remotely, it was really hard for the one to kind of. It was hard to read stuff like that. So we ended up having also those on our own machines through Teams, even though we were on the same space. It balanced the ground for everyone in the mob. And I think we applied that also later on when everyone was present. So that everyone had their own screens, own keyboards, own computers, and we were just in the same discussion room.
Okay. So even if people are physically next to each other, it's better to work on their own machines.
Yeah, I can't say better, but we used it. We liked it. I think this is a lot about how the group likes to do things.
Okay, and do you have anything special for the remote setup, like tools, hardware, and so on?
I think we tried a couple of plugins for our IDEs, but ended up working through Teams, just like it's the most easiest way.
Okay.
I'm not sure what was the problem with the tools. There were always some sort of hitches with the plugins and stuff like that, so couldn't find a suitable one for us.
So you just open a Zoom session or Teams?
Yeah,
and
one share screen, and that's about it. And then we just rotate, and the other one shares the screen. And
yeah. And
in that way, the other ones can like use their other screen to search for code or something like that. So.
Okay, and how do you do handover, or you don't know?
I'm not quite sure.
Okay.
I'm not quite sure on that. Yeah.
Okay. And my last question is about the. Have you noticed the time between how much time it took for the benefits of mob programming to be seen, and if that's applicable to you, because you've already mob programming was already introduced when you came to the organization. But...
Yeah, it's kind of hard to say in that case, but I've been in a company where we also, like now, where I mean, we've been trying to use it. I think the benefits have usually come directly. The first ones, like, hey, this is kind of a cool way, and we can like. One of the benefits is that we start learning from the development cycle and stuff like that. Also, like the mobbing itself. I keep that as a benefit also, so that the people start to learn and improve themselves. It's kind of the same cycle that you can apply into like anything you do in software.
Yeah.
Just learn and fail fast and do stuff like that. It's not always like people understand it immediately, but mobbing is kind of a way where you can introduce a safe playground also to that kind of methodologies. So yeah, but it's hard to say, but I would expect it to take a couple of weeks for the first benefits to come up in like knowledge sharing and stuff like that.
Okay. Good. So these are basically all the questions I had. So if you have anything else to add and to share, please do.
Yeah, all things I would say is that just try it out and work with it for some time, and I think most of people really like it in the end. It might be painful to introduce at first because it's totally different approach to developing that usually people have done. And there are pains in the way, but you learn it quite quickly, and when you get it, and especially if you can introduce some sort of product managers or product owners into that cycle, even though they are not already always present, but if they can be present, it kind of fastens up things quite a lot and gives you the ability to get rid of writing requirements, specifications, and a lot of handovers. So
yeah,
it gives a lot of opportunities to be more agile. I hate the word, but in a way.
Yeah. Okay. So that's it from my side. And we have still 30 minutes left. So if you'd like to discuss anything else related to that, I'm happy to do it. Otherwise, we can end earlier. So yeah.
Well, I probably don't have much more to add. There was quite a lot already, but
yeah, it was intensive.
yeah. it always is with me.
Yeah. Well, okay, Jarno. Thank you a lot. We'll keep in touch on LinkedIn. I already follow your posts,
for sure.
so it's quite interesting to learn things from you. So, yeah, and wish you all the luck in your new job.
Hey, thank you. That was fun.
Great. Okay, bye and have a nice evening.
Yep. Bye.